Hello, you're listening to the Neil Lamptey Show. My name's Joey, and I'm joined this week by Paul.
Hi, mate.
By Neil.
Hello.
And to fill us in on the depressing details of the Shrewsbury game, we've got CJ with us as well. Hi, CJ. Good to have you back.
Hello there.
It would have been nicer for it to have been in better circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it would be. It would have been a bit nicer after a 2-0 win, wouldn't it? But
yeah, I thought things couldn't get much worse after the Barnsley game, and I actually haven't been to the last two games, so I'm going to try and keep my gob shut as much as possible throughout this podcast. But apparently, no, we can. This team that was, top and in the playoffs for a long, long time, apparently you can just toss away 4 defeats against what is on the whole largely abject opposition by the sounds of it. Despite that, through the mire, shall we try and claw some moments of the week out? Paul, do you want to start us off?
No.
No. Can we cobble together one between us? Is that something that can happen, or?
Well, I was trying to think of a flippant one, or basically, people stop telling me to be more positive and more cheerful on Twitter? I don't think me being positive on Twitter is going to make a blind bit of difference to whether or not we're shit. Me doing a bit of research and finding out this has happened to Moby twice before, and then someone going, well, if you're going to be negative, it's like stating facts about Tony Moby's teams having massive declines in the second half of the season. I don't think is particularly my problem. I would say it's more of maybe Tony Moby's problem, and he has to solve why it keeps happening. And I don't think it happened previously when everyone went a bit negative on Twitter. I think it's obviously a flaw in something he's doing, and he has to solve it.
I think we'll probably come on to that some more as the podcast goes on, I imagine. Neil, your moment of the week?
I thought Liongate was not interesting at all, but it was noteworthy.
What was Liongate? I missed that.
Oh, sorry. James Maddison did some random, one of his bullish tweets, like he does, because he's brilliant, and people took offence to it, and then he deleted it, and everybody got cross, and we lost.
Do you want to explain that situation in more detail, or actually is it even
more detail? That's pretty much it. He said something, just he thinks he's brilliant, so he said something to. It was some tweet. It was a quote from Game of Thrones or something. I don't watch it because it's filthy. But it's basically some tweet. Just the lion doesn't listen to the thoughts of the sheep or something like that.
It's not a problem,
Obviously, everybody.
Yeah.
I think people thought, it's with sheep now, which it probably does. Took offence to it. He came out and said, no, I weren't saying that at all. People continued to get cross, and I think, if anything, it just kind of showcases kind of where the players may potentially be, and the difference between the players and the fans now. Because I was thinking back to that Reece Charles Cook Christmas letter to Santa, and how he was talking about how the team was going to move forward, and Maddison was going to see us to the Premiership, blah, blah, and then a couple of months later, we've got basically you can't think of any of that team. You can't imagine that thing happening anymore. Maddison's off. Murphy and Armstrong already feel like they've achieved this season, so they'll be off. It's just 2 months later, and we don't have a connection with the players anymore. It's just strange.
Yeah,
so that is one of those things where people are defending him, going, "Oh, it's just a quote from Game of Thrones." Either A, he's incredibly stupid, or B, he knew exactly what he was doing. He was just very naive.
Oh, does it matter though?
I just think he was just saying something.
Yeah,
he's always saying stuff like that. It's only because we're shit at the moment that people get touchy about.
Yeah, I think the problem is it's like if he didn't know that people were going to take that in the wrong sense, then he's incredibly stupid.
But hang on a second, who's at fault?
I know what you're about to, Joey. I sort of agree with what you're about to say, if I think what you're about to say. But we have a lot of moronic fans. And as soon as you put something like that on social media, you will get some of those moronic fans who will leap on it and because they're in a bad mood because we've lost 3 on the bounce when he said it, people will use that. And people are already looking for a reason to slag him off.
Yeah, risk management, I guess, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, don't say it, because even you're just going, oh, I'm just quoting the TV programme. As soon as you say something like that, you'll get people who go, wow, he's too big for his boots, he's got his move to Norwich, and now we're all sheep. Because that's what people think. And people, you've already got, it's like that don't poke the bear. The fans are already really pissed off, and he's gone and poked a load of people who are really pissed off, and then been surprised when they've acted really angrily.
I thought "Don't poke the bear" was the mantra of every girl you went to uni with.
But, you know what I mean?
I actually was more annoyed at that picture of that 120 grand Lamborghini that he tweeted from his pocket. I don't want to waste any more breath on this, to be honest. I am very quickly going to say that me and Jim and Martin, who are two fellow Cov fans, we're in London, because I was working in London this week, doing a pub quiz rather than being at the Shrewsbury game, and Martin looked at his phone and said, oh, we're 1-0 up, and then what seemed like about 2 seconds was like, oh no, don't worry about it guys, it's fine, it's 1-1. It has gone in the last few weeks to us being so confident to now it being like, oh, something's wrong, we're 1-0 up, oh, but don't worry about it, normal things have been restored. As well, he was just like, yeah, it's 1-1, and he was like, so I had a look at it on the Sky Sports app, which gives you the sort of like the basic commentary, and I was like, yeah, don't worry about it guys, it was a set piece delivery, just headed in, just like, alright, didn't need to look at that at all, did I? Yeah. There's a beautiful element of continuity about it. I mean, it almost, I guess, makes the next half hour or so of this podcast redundant, but we're going to do it. And it never has us not being needed or wanted stopped us from doing a podcast. So why don't we talk about the Rochdale and Shrewsbury games? Neil, you're going to start us off, aren't you?
Did we get CJ's moment of the week?
Oh, sorry, I forgot, of course. Yeah, CJ, bring it.
Yeah, right. Mine was firstly actually going into the lead in a game, which was it was a strange experience. I mean, I was just thinking now, when was the last time that actually happened? And it seems like a long day. No idea how long ago that was. It could even be the Gillingham game. Probably was it Bury? Last time we were actually in the league.
Yeah, we must
I'm
have
not
been.
sure.
So, yeah.
Were we? Possibly Port Vale, I can't remember, but it's actually Bury's been since Port Vale, so yeah. So that was one, and I mean, I've been one of his biggest critics. I'll slate him to the hill every week, but I've got to say, Fortune's performance on Tuesday was actually not bad, and he actually looked like he could make a difference. And then, I mean, he put in some reasonable balls in, and yeah, he actually looked like he wanted to drag the team forward and get a goal, which is, we've got to take as a positive, but especially how things are going. And he got I'd say he got man of the match. So,
wow, and I saw a number of people speak favourably about his performance. I actually thought he did well when he came on against Fleetwood, But yeah, hopefully that's an upturn in fortunes for him. Did he make it onto the pitch at any point against Rochdale?
What was that, sorry?
Did he? I can't remember whether he came on against Rochdale. That was aimed at you, Neil.
Yeah, he did. He got 15, 20 minutes near the end, to most people's disappointment, including Joe Cole's as well. He was visibly annoyed to be taken off, but I don't really know why, because...
You play shit, you get taken off.
Yeah, that's what tends to happen in football, and it happened again to us. We had 11 players on the pitch. Most of them seemed to be playing poorly all the way through the match, but what I was trying to do all game was be patient, or at least in the first half. I was kind of, because I could see they were nervy, I was hoping just to give them a bit of a chance to sort of ease their way into the game. And at half time, I kind of went on Twitter and said I felt like they were sort of easing their way into the game. It wasn't brilliant, but you could see the intent was there to sort of control the match. But as it wore on in the second half, it was just, they didn't have any of the drive needed to turn that patience into something meaningful, because, we've gone through however many matches of not winning now. It's just, we needed a win. And I got so frustrated in that second half when there didn't seem to be any, I hate this word, but urgency. because it's so vague, but there wasn't. There was nobody on that pitch looking to turn what was going to be either defeat or a draw into the win that we needed. And I mean, the one person who I thought tried to do this, and I don't think he did it successfully at all, but I thought John Fleck at least tried to turn the game on its head at certain points. But unfortunately, John Fleck wasn't playing very well. So whenever he tried to do it, it inevitably sort of ended in him giving the ball away. And I mean, he was ultimately at fault for throwing away a point just through sheer sort of daftness. But it just seemed to be where we are at the moment, which is just daft decisions, chronic bad luck, and the match just. I never felt like we were going to win it, or we were aiming to win it, and that's the most frustrating thing, because we're at a point in the season now where if we want to achieve something and turn around what's actually happening to us, we need to win. And we keep saying, oh, every game's a must win, but the fact is we need to win 7 or however many games. And when you don't even show any urgency to do it against Rochdale at home, you sort of wonder, well, where is it going to come from? Because the games aren't going to get any easier when you're losing confidence. And that Rochdale game was just, it was chronic for me. I mean, he tried something different with Lemira's Maddison and Cole, tried to go ultra flary, and the problem you get with that is you have no pace. So you've got no urgency from the midfield. We brought on Murphy. He was just hesitant, I thought. He wasn't the normal Murphy you'd expect. He would come on and just run at players. He was too indecisive when he got the ball. Fortuné came on. People were angry about that. He must know that people are angry about him being on the pitch. He tries for a few minutes, doesn't come off, and then he just goes back into his shell. And he came on, and that, of all the performances, that's the most sort of available he's been. But I still don't think it was anywhere close to being good enough or impactful. And yeah, I just think just a terrible, terrible match for what it was. It was Rochdale at home. We needed to win. We need to address this decline, and we're not doing it. And what kills me the most is that they don't seem to be fighting for anything anymore. Like literally fighting for what we're supposed to be fighting for, which is promotion. That's the only thing that should be acceptable this season. And it's the point I was making earlier, but I just don't feel like the team has the same drive anymore. Ever since, earlier in the year when Maddison was sold, and I just feel like they've kind of lost focus, and now it's almost like it doesn't matter anymore.
What's the crack with Maddison's performances over the last few weeks? How would you assess that situation?
He's a bit of, like many of our players, I think he's a bit of a fair weather player. That doesn't necessarily have to be a criticism, because in certain matches that will mean he's going to flourish. But the problem he's got is at the moment in time, he's not strong enough to engage with strong players. And the games, he's been tightly marked, and whenever he gets the ball, he's been asked to engage with these players in the physical battle, and it just he doesn't have the time to do what he's had the time to do in previous matches. Like on the nice slick pitches away games where he's got a bit of space to look up and pick out the ball, drop his shoulder, or where players have just dropped off him, he looks brilliant. But the moment someone comes to address him and gets to him while he's got the ball, he struggles with it. And I think, he's a really confident player, but that confidence soon dwindles when he really against people who actually can physically bundle him off the ball quite easily. And he doesn't get any sort of protection from the referee, really. Not that he should, because a lot of the time it's just him on the floor, because he just simply isn't strong enough. I mean, people are saying he should stay on his feet a bit more. I'm a slight player. If I can't help being weaker than some people, these people are stronger than him. Simple as that. All he has really got, I mean, what I think he should be doing a lot more of now is just laying the ball off. I mean, if you can't engage with them, if you're not getting the free kicks, lay the ball off, play simple until you have got space. And that's kind of, I think that's his problem at the moment. It's just come to that point in the season where people are a lot more sort of intense in the matches than we are, and it's showing.
I think the other thing is, we felt this a lot on Saturday. He was looking to be fouled. He was holding on to the ball for that touch too long, and then would basically just wait until he was kicked. And you were just like, just release the ball. If you passed it quicker, you wouldn't be in that sort of situation where your only option is to try and win a free kick. And I don't think it helps him. I know we discussed this ad infinitum. It doesn't help him the fact that he plays in a different quartet each time. But also, I think at the moment, I think the reason that Fortune looked so good when he came on Saturday is he was the first player, when the ball went to him, he just held it up and then passed it back to a teammate. There was quite a few times just before he got taken off where the ball would come to Joe Cole, he'd be facing John Fleck, 5 yards away from John Fleck, but he wouldn't pass John Fleck the ball. He'd try and do some amazing outside the right foot pass or try and spin his man, and lost it every time. And it was just so infuriating because it was so wasteful. And sometimes you can't just have 4 players whose only idea is to try a flick or a trick. You need someone who's just going to hold the ball up and bring others into play. And on Saturday, there was just too many artisans trying to play their own game, and it didn't work. And sort of going on from Neil's point, the most frustrating thing out the 3 games out of Barnsley away, Fleetwood at home, and Rochdale, because I couldn't be asked to go to Shrewsbury. Most frustrating out of those 3 is I thought Fleetwood were all right and actually looked an all right side. I know Joey thought they were shit, but I thought they were all right. Barnsley were a good side who just gave up because they just thought we were too easy. Rochdale was shit. Rochdale are a shit side. They played a diamond formation and basically went, we're going to give you the wings. And we didn't utilise the width at all. And even in the second half, when Ricketts went to centre half and the Swedish guy came on and tried his hardest to sort of attack from fullback, we still refused to give him the pass early. We still went round the houses to release him. And Rochdale were there for the taking, and we didn't even try and take it. And then you've got John Fleck. And like, whatever my feelings about Moby at the moment, you can't come out in the post and go, oh, it was a soft penalty. He kicked the guy in the penalty area for no reason. It was the most blatant penalty you're going to see. Instead of having to go at the referee for giving a soft penalty, go, yeah, it was a penalty. I'm going to have a word with John Fleck because that's just careless. That's just stupid. And that's cost us a point. Because it wasn't the referee's fault. The only thing the referee could do in that situation was point to the spot.
Is it? I mean, I don't even think I'd have felt better about having that point. I almost think that defeat is arbitrary in what it means to our overall situation. If we'd have drawn that game, I'd have felt just as bad about it.
I agree as well. I just think we're at a point where wins are all that matter. Really, it's either wins or if we don't get the win, doesn't matter if we lose or draw. It's not going to get us anywhere.
No, if we're gonna lose, and we lose trying to win, then I'll be less annoyed. Losing because one of your players is a cretin, it just drives me up the wall. Because I know a point does, but a point means we're not 3 points outside the playoffs. It means we're 2 points. A draw means we haven't lost 7 of the last 9. A draw does mean just a clean sheet would mean something. Other than the Bury game, and we can't just the Bury game was awful. The game before that was Crewe. By all accounts, Crewe were awful. You just well, at least Rochdale, while they were shit, they're not so bad that we've just destroyed them 4 or 5-0. At least they've sort of come with a little bit of a game plan. At least it stops the rot. It does. Our home form since we beat Gillingham is just pathetic.
Neil, do you want to pick up on the final Rochdale bits?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the stats overall, I was trying to find some positives from the game, and you'd think me picking up the point like this, I'd actually found some, but I haven't, I'm afraid. They had more possession, more shots, more corners, and they had more fouls, which in true sort of Roy Keane fashion, I'd say that's a better thing in that match. I just think there's no urgency about the situation, and we're being given almost every single opportunity to resolve it, just by the way results go, and the fact that we are still only 3 points off the playoffs, with however many games left, and we've been truly atrocious for a very long time now, and we're still within just a couple of games of fixing it, or at least getting back into a position of control. And so that's what that just wound me off the most about the other day. It was just we all felt it. There was a lot of anxiety around the crowd, but I just, the only time they kind of kicked into life, the team, was about after 80 minutes when the crowd started to get really wound up, and you could see that almost reflecting. And I know it's a whole sort of double-edged sword thing. We should be pushing them on, and they should be, giving us something to cheer about, all that sort of stuff. But I don't want it to get to 80 minutes and then us suddenly thinking, shit, they're not going to try unless we actually give them something, and give them a bit of a rocket. They need to give us something a lot earlier, and maybe they gave us, obviously they gave us a goal on Tuesday night, which obviously is a little bit better than what we'd dealt with on Saturday.
And again, I think this fan thing overall, I can never tell how much of a red herring that is. And the one thing I guess that is absolutely undeniable is that there's an argument to be had about chicken or egg, but that all the way through this season when we've been good and the fans have been coming out on Twitter and saying fans were amazing again, I would have to go for the fact that it's the players that have to get the fans on their feet. And I think there's a debate to be had about that. I don't know where everyone else stands on it, but typically...
You only have to look over time, don't you? I mean, there's no discernible pattern, really, when you look at the detail between a big support, a small support, us winning, us losing. I know we feel like, when we bring a load of people to the Rico, we always lose. That's not the case. If you look at the numbers, it just seems that way. It's not actually the case. It's how the players appear on the day, and it's how they turn up. And I just feel they're not at the races at all at the moment. And one thing I can't do is sit here and just come up with a load of solutions in my mind about how we're going to fix it, because I literally don't have any. There is no reason on this earth. And you could put these players in any other team in that division, and they'd lap them up. They'd love it because they are good individual players. But something is not working at the moment as a team, as a unit. And Mowbray, it's his job to fix it. But I can't sit here and say you should do this. It's his job. He's getting paid to do it. Fix it.
Yeah, it's just strange, isn't it? I mean, Paul, you talked earlier about having the stats for his 2 previous collapses at Middlesbrough. Did you have more? It felt like you had more that you wanted to share on that.
Well, not really. The facts are the first full season at Middlesbrough, I think they were second after 24 games, and they finished 7th, having gone on runs of 6 defeats and 8 defeats in the last 20 games. And his second season, they were top after 16 games, and they ended up about 16th, and they won, I think, 2 games after Christmas or something. And he came out last week and went, "We've missed Ryan Kent," and you're like, "Okay, you're right, we have." You didn't replace him. You didn't even try and replace. Well, you had a lad on loan from Holland in January, but you sent him back going, "Our priorities are somewhere else." You can't now bemoan you don't have a quick winger when you didn't try and replace your quick winger who you lost 3 months ago. And it's the people who are, we can keep considering from set pieces. Wow, he lost Ben Turner. Well, he did. He lost Ben Turner in November, 3 or 4 months ago. It's just...
And there was never... It would have been pretty damn unlikely that we would have kept Ben Turner for any longer than the month or so that we had him for, would there?
And we found a solution, didn't we? Aaron Martin was doing the job in his absence. It turned it around, didn't it? So it's not like it wasn't immediately. It didn't immediately break us. We were doing fine for a very long period, defensively at least, after Ben Turner left.
Well, that's the other thing. He said, we've had lots. Back full change. We've had a lot of injuries, and you're like, well, okay, we've had Raiders been injured, and then Ben Turner, his replacement, was injured, and then Aaron Martin, okay, his replacement was injured. Okay, that's 3 injuries, but for one position.
Willis as well, Paul.
Pardon?
Willis as well.
Yeah, I'm not overly bothered by Willis. He only played about 2 games at the start of the season, and he was pretty average. But at the end of the day, you fell out of favour with Aaron Phillips, who was playing all right at right back, apart from that one major mistake. And people who I know on Twitter and other places who don't rate him will be good insight. Oh yeah, Aaron Phillips is playing all right.
Sorry, was he playing all right?
I thought he was.
Yeah, but okay.
Aaron Phillips is playing all right. he had Ricketts at centre half, where he was a lot better than he is at right back. Where me and CJ agree on this. I think he's been awful for a while, and Stokes has played most of the season at left back. He could have kept those 3 of his back 4 and his goalkeeper, so 4 of his back 5, pretty consistent. Or he could have brought in the Swedish lad he brought at right back if he didn't rate Phillips, put him at right back, kept Ricketts at centre half, and he still would have only had to bring in 1 new centre half. And the fact he brought in 2 new centre halves, and I know everyone was raving about Cargill after the Port Vale game against Rochdale in the first half. He was awful. Like, he just kept doing this left-footed crossfield pass to no one, and he was like, just stop doing that.
He was injured for quite a bit of it, though, wasn't he?
But he was doing that before he was injured. After he got injured, he thankfully realised he couldn't punt it halfway across the pitch and started playing the ball simply to Stokes' feet. Like, it's just... He's made a lot of decisions. But the signing of Stephen Hunt just baffles everyone. But also, like, Tudguy was on the bench against Fleetwood, and came on, did all right. Started against Barnsley, disappeared from the squad completely on Saturday, and then was back on the bench. And Fortune's done a similar thing in the last 4 games. He's been on the bench twice, started once, and not been in the squad once. And there's nothing there. And it's like, you hear Fortuna go, he played really well against Shrewsbury. I'm sure TJ, as you said earlier, that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean Fortuna's going to start against Blackpool. Anyone could start against Blackpool. And it's also, so I know we're going completely off piece now, but it's in his last 18 games, Adam Armstrong's only scored in 4 of them. He's only actually scored in 2 away games all season. And you're thinking, well, why is that? Why are we no longer getting the best out of Armstrong? Why? But also, if he's not scoring, why not drop him for a couple of games or take him out the firing line? Just playing him up front and hoping to dear God it clicks isn't a system, it isn't a plan. It's hope. And he's looked off the pace the last couple of games that I've seen him, especially against Barnsley. It was why we persevering with this.
No, me and you disagree on that, but I guess that's probably not that's probably for last week's podcast.
Well, yeah,
CJ,
but it is a case. It has to change now, doesn't it?
Again, I think this makes me quite cross. So I think maybe perhaps move on. CJ, do you want to talk to us about how they lined up against Shrewsbury?
I've got to say that at the back we just look rickety all the way through.
Sam Rickety.
Yeah. I mean, as Nola alluded to, we actually shared a cuddle at the game last week because we agreed, didn't we, Nola, about the way I was been playing in the last few months. I mean, I just feel like Ricketts has been. I don't feel anymore that he's leading the line particularly well. He's making mistakes. He's doing. I mean, I listed on Twitter a number of things that he's doing that he's doing wrong, and I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, well, effectively, we've got Phillips there to start with that could come in and replace him. Now he could come in and replace him, and I'm looking at the list of what Ricketts is doing wrong, and I'm thinking, well, Phillips did do a lot wrong, but he didn't actually do as much as what Ricketts has done. So I'm thinking, well, and the other thing is we've got Laurie&n there, and I don't understand why he's not playing, to be honest. But anyway, the rest of the lineup, I thought midfield was fairly kind of not there. To be fair to the defence, they didn't really get much backup from those in front of them. Going forwards, especially when Henderson came on, and we played him and Fortune kind of flanking Armstrong. Murphy had departed. I thought we did look a lot better. Henderson did actually start to bully some of their players in the box, and even when he didn't even touch the ball in the box, in corners and what have you, he instantly just created space for for Armstrong in particular. I thought that, as I said earlier, I thought that Fortune was vastly improved, which doesn't really say a lot. I'd love him to play a few games like that. I'm not even bothered if he doesn't score. I'm not even bothered if he doesn't get an assist, because quite frankly, as long as he plays like he had, he was on Tuesday, that's fine.
What did he do? What was different about the performance?
He just, like I said earlier, he just seemed like he just had a lot more get up and go in him. It's almost like Mowbray had been kind of sat there with his arm round him for months and months and months. Now all of a sudden he's actually kicked him up the arse and said, "I'm not going to do that to you anymore, Mark. You've got to get out there. You've got to get out there and prove to me you can do it." And he looked like he had a point to prove. Now I don't know whether he'd been told it was last chance saloon for him. I don't know. But he just looked like he had a point to prove. And at times he did link well with those around him. But I thought Murphy, he seems to be improving a little bit, little by little each game now. Because I thought for about 4 or 5 games he just looked injured. He didn't look like he could run. He didn't look like he could turn. But he does look like he's actually starting to chase balls now, and I don't know whether it's a similar sort of thing with him. I don't know. But I mean, it was alluded to earlier with Armstrong. He did actually get into 1 or 2 positions. He did actually look like, he might be able to find the net. But again, he's just massively out of form at the moment, and I think it was either Neil or Paul that mentioned about his form. I mean, the two away games he scored in, he scored 2 in a 4-0 win and a hat-trick in a 5-0 win. And you've got to look at it, and you take his goals out of it, effectively 2-0. So, has he had that bigger impact away? Obviously, at home he has. But I personally think it's time to take him out the team. I don't. But then, who do we replace him with? Do we persist with Murphy and stick him down the middle? I don't know. Do we try Maddison further forward? With Cole behind him? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, at the moment, I don't think we've got any other option up there.
We're tossing a coin, whatever we do. There's nothing definitive there. There's nothing. We're not seeing enough from people coming into the team to say, okay, they can definitely oust our top scorer from the team, and that's the one problem we've got. I mean, the only shining or saving grace potentially of taking them out is the whole bringing on a fast, quick, hungry player off the bench for 20, 25 minutes might actually be a better system for us at the moment. Because I think I'd much prefer Adam Armstrong finishing the game than Fortune. If we're going to start Fortune, start him, and if he's rubbish, take him off. I hate seeing him come on the pitch when we're absolutely desperate for a goal, and it saps all the life out of us. I'd much rather have it the other way around.
Soften him up.
Yeah, almost. Yeah.
I agree with Fortune. I agree with you on that. I mean, he's never ever going to win us a game, is he? Realistically, the one thing I think he does do well, and I'm trying to think what game it was. It's actually Bradford, I think. It's strange, but it was defensively at the when he's actually back, he can hold up the ball and he can actually play the ball out, and we'll go from the byline to 20 yards out, and it's the transition from the kind of the
sweeper
edge
roll.
Yeah, in theory, yeah. And he can actually pull us out defensively. And I mean, that's odd, really, for a centre forward. It's something that he has been able to do. But like I said, he's never going to win us a game. It's the sort of thing where if we're 1-0 up, 2-1 up, and you want somebody to come on the pitch and waste a bit of time and hold the ball up, he's your man. Is he better than Tudgay at that? I don't know. But I just think that bringing him, I agree with you, bringing him on, trying to win a game, it's never going to happen. He's never ever going to go out and score 2 when we're 1-0 down. It's never going to happen, is it? It's never happened in his career, let alone when he's 34.
No, I don't see it happening. Are we not going a little bit mad talking about dropping Armstrong? Because, and this is what I was sort of alluding to earlier, is I don't think we help ourselves as fans with some of our lunacy sometimes, because we've talked at different points even today. CJ, you said that you felt that Adam Armstrong could do with coming out, but that we haven't got an option. And I guess that's, if it's really
desperation,
easy,
isn't it?
But it's really easy. It's really easy for us to sit here and say it, but then Mowbray has to do something about it. And if he takes him out at the moment, it feels like he's getting slated for it. Then it doesn't work. He'll get slated for it immediately. Or if he leaves him in, people will start saying, well, he needs to. And the problem is, I think we're doing a thing as fans at the moment where we're saying something needs to change, and he's doing it once and it's not working, and everyone's going, well, that's rubbish, that didn't work. And
I agree.
And I don't know.
We're desperately seeking a solution to a problem that we don't really know what the answer is, and that's our problem.
But a month ago, we were saying that our problem was that the players needed to get a settled first 11, and then we spun on a dime then as well when things didn't work after 2 games. We demanded that all the back four was changed and all the front four was changed.
Okay, can I put over the other argument at the moment?
Go for it.
Playing 4-2-3-1 isn't working. It isn't. At the moment, his go-to system isn't working. There are too many players who are clearly either out of form or uninterested. And I was going to say that mainly, you look at the two central midfielders who've been the bedrock all season, neither of them are playing well at the moment. Fleck's pretty shit, and Vincelow, who for me would have been player of the year up till recently, has been garbage. And you're thinking, okay, that's sort of fine if we can sort of still get goals, which we're not doing, or we can keep clean sheets, which we're not doing. So you think, okay, maybe we could help those two out by playing a slightly different system, maybe putting another midfielder in there, put Rose in there and go 3 in midfield. Or you could take one of those two out, because just keeping them in because it worked at the start of the season appears to be madness, because they're not playing well. And then your front four, you're looking at it and go, the reality is Armstrong isn't scoring goals at the moment. And one of the big issues for me at the moment is he's not even missing chances. We're just not creating chances.
But that's not true. There was 2 against Rochdale that he could have scored. There was one that was from outside.
Yeah.
Even the highlights show he hit one from outside the box that the keeper did really well to push over the bar. And there was one that was point blank range that he ballooned over. So he is missing chances.
Well, the first one is a great strike from outside the area. Now that's chances. He had another one against Barnsley, which was a great shot from 25 yards. We're asking him to score wonder goals. We're not creating 5
But that's
or 6
all he scored for us the entire time he's been here.
But the thing is, we're not. But at the start, if you actually watch the goals he was scoring at the start of the season, we were sliding balls through to him. He was going through 1-on-1 and scoring goals. We're not creating those chances for him. So keep him up front. But at the end of the day, the reality is he's scored in 2 away games all season, and he's only scored in 4 of his last 18 appearances. The other options aren't that great.
And that's the thing.
Just staying with Armstrong at this moment in time isn't working. Or you put him up with someone who might be able to help him. Joe Cole isn't working. Playing him on the left wing is a farce, but it's not working. Maddison being in and out the team one game, coming back in for a game, getting taken off for an hour, that's not working. It's sort of what he's doing at the moment isn't working. So he either has to change it wholesale and say, okay, at the moment, I want to play 4-2-3-1 and I want to play this wonderful, sexy football. But at the moment, we need to get out of this rut. So I'm prepared to play slightly more direct, either start with Henderson or start with Tudguy, or even start with 2 of those sort of 3 big physical players and say for this one game, we're going to go a little bit more direct. We're going to hold the ball up front, not through fancy little flicks, but with players with a bit of Nelson strength. And we're going to set our platform slightly different. Instead of taking short goal kicks all the time and trying to be this wonderful defensive passing team, what we're going to do is be pretty blunt, but we're going to go to Blackpool, be pretty blunt, but we're going to bloody win because they're shit. Because whatever we think of what happened at the start of the season, that sort of team's gone. Those players are sort of, as we alluded to earlier, are sort of not there at the moment for whatever reason. And just sticking with what we've got, playing the same system, which other teams have clearly worked out, because Rochdale came and had a set plan and basically went, we know you're playing with 3 players who all want to play in number 10. So we're going to play very narrow. We're going to give you the width, and you're not going to cross the ball because you can't. And if you do cross the ball, your striker's Armstrong. So we're going to deal with that because we're 6'4". And then on Wednesday, when you saw he finally brought Henderson off, he takes off Murphy, who's got the most assists in the squad. And you're like, well, just because you've got strikers on the pitch doesn't mean you're going to score goals if you've got no creativity. Because who's going to score? Who's going to create the goal for Henderson to score? It's just, you've got to go with a system at the moment which is going to get us a result. And sticking to what we're doing hasn't got us results.
But we can be as assertive as we like about the points, but we are still guessing. There's nothing. I know football's all about guessing, but if we do that, all we end up doing is matching another team like for like, essentially. And we're just saying, right, okay, we're going to put this team on the pitch, and let's hope it will fix it. There's nothing. I cannot see anything in that team at the moment which you said I can be happy about. Like, whereas in the beginning of the season, we were looking at the players and we knew our team was better. We knew that they were playing better. So are we coming to the point where it's about their mentality? Is it more than just putting players on the pitch and the system and all these things that we're supposed to be in tune with in football, where systems win you matches and tactics win you matches, or is it a mentality? Is it something that's going wrong fundamentally within these players where they just haven't got the drive anymore?
I fear that there is a much more simple explanation for this, and that it's one that is that we're overcomplicating things. I think when you look at how we were, even if you look at the team that we played against Gillingham, is even as small a difference as it might seem, is what it gives you tactically to have Ryan Kent and Ben Turner on the pitch is incredible, because the set-piece goals that we've conceded recently, you would have thought that Ben Turner could have dealt with, even let's conservatively say 50% of them, which I think it probably could be higher than that. And I think that dynamically going forward, having pacey players on 2 wings rather than just one, especially when one is misfiring in the shape of Jacob Murphy, that it gives you a different dimension. To remove those 2 is one thing, but to replace them with the dearth of quality that we have. So against Barnsley, that wasn't just removing a player of Ryan Kent's quality, it was adding in a player who was destructively poor. And I feel that whatever system we go for right now and whatever tactics it is, I'm not convinced that there are enough players in the squad of a comparable quality to each other that allows us to put a functioning team on the pitch that was as good as it was. Because I'm not convinced that they're all there. I think as an 11, when you look at that one that started against Gillingham and then you look at the one that started against Barnsley, that there's a drop-off in quality in some of the players that are still there, and that's interesting. And I'm talking about players like Ricketts rather than Armstrong. I think Armstrong has still got 19 goals this season and has scored recently. And even maybe you could look at him and say there is a drop-off in his performances from earlier in the season or whatever. But I think when you look at the negative difference between some of the players that were here and are now and what it does to us, it's ridiculous. I think that
can't be 4 defeats in a row worthy, though, isn't it? Surely. I mean, it needs to be more. I mean, I completely agree. I think the dynamic of that team far superior to anything else we've seen this season, and it makes a difference. But I just can't see, with these players, they should be good enough. But any other team would look at those players and say, we want them, we want him. No, we've had an embarrassment of riches really this season of players. We've had our pick of the good loan players. We've had our pick of the available free players and the defenders when we've needed them, and yet we've lost 4 in a row, and it shows no sign of abating.
But I think Jim O'Brien, Reeder Johnson / Ben Turner, and Ryan Kent, I think they have never been adequately replaced. Jim O'Brien is the final nail in the coffin for me. That to me is where the season fell apart. That'll be where I look back at this season.
Does it make us the worst team in the league?
I think, Neil, to some extent, I think you've got it right. If you look at in the cold light of day, when you've got so many players who aren't actually, there's very few players in the Coventry City starting 11 or 18 who've actually got anything to play for. Very few of them are playing for their Coventry City career because most of them don't have a Coventry City career. They're here for 11 more games or 10 more games or however many games it is. That's basically it, isn't it? I mean, there's no actual reality of these players are going to be playing for Coventry City next season, and if they don't book up their ideas, they're going to be playing for Coventry City in League One rather than the Championship.
They're not fighting for the Reece Charles Cook dream, are they?
No, because they've already got their move. They're already, 5 or 6 of them are already Premiership players or Championship players, depends what happens to Norwich. You've got 4 or 5 of them who are going to retire at the end of the season, or if they be amazed if Stephen Hunt's still here next season. I'll be Joe Cole. Basically, having watched Joe Cole, I think it's time for him to hang up his boots. He's not influencing enough League One games for it to be worthwhile in a team that's basically built to his advantage. Darius Henderson's 34, Mark 14's 34, Doug Guy's 34. These players aren't fighting to be Championship players next season, and that's got an issue. I think there is obviously a flaw in Mowbray's makeup, which is why this keeps happening. And managers obviously have an issue when their teams start to decline, because we see it often where managers get fired and the team's won 1 in 10. And I can't imagine what it's like to try and get players motivated, which is why they must come up with some of the bullshit they come up with in their interviews and post-match analysis, because obviously slacking off the players isn't the best option. But at the end of the day, Mowbray just doesn't look like... And you listen to him, and I listened to his post-match interview after the Shrewsbury game because I was interested. It was like, oh, we're definitely getting better going forward. I think we've turned the corner. And you're like, well, it's just platitudes. It doesn't mean anything. Mm-hmm. And it's a bit like this, we'll go on till, we'll go to on the game on Saturday and we'll see what that brings. And it's like, that's just...
Yeah, that'll do it.
That's wound me up big time, that.
Yeah, of course you're going to go on to the Blackpool game. What else are you going to fucking do? And... I think, and me and Joe have discussed this in the past, for me, just go back to, Blackpool are shit. Blackpool are truly shit. And I think they've lost 4 of the last 6. And they're just a terrible side. And we should be going there and absolutely destroying them. But we're fragile with confidence as well. And I almost wish the players wouldn't come out and say, we're still confident. It's like, just admit you're not. But just also... make sure, and this is why I go back to the Rochdale game being such a pain in the ass, is just get a result. Just something to stop the rot. A clean sheet stops the rot. Not conceding a soft goal gives you something to build on, because, as I said, you're not looking at the stats going, we've lost 4 on the bounce. You're going, okay, we've lost 3. That's shit. But at least we've got that draw. At least we've got something to build on. And I think it would have, the attendance was shit against Rochdale. But at the end of the day, we went away and we made those 9,000 even more, or 10,000 even more annoyed than they need to be by giving away a last minute, 7 minutes from time penalty. It's just little things like that just gnaw at people, and it's a bit like, I know we don't want to discuss the James Maddison thing, but that just gnaws at people. It's just, there's no unity. And when people go, but imagine, I think Moby said it's like, we're still only just outside the playoffs. If we'd been coming from nowhere, people would be really excited. And it's like, yeah, if we'd won 10 games on the bounce and we were 3 points off the playoffs, this pod would be completely different. We'd all be fucking giddy with excitement. But that's not the reality. The reality is, up until last week, we'd been in the playoffs since the start of the season. And we've slowly just edged it away. And I don't think that, maybe you're right. Maybe there's no answer. Maybe the hope is you just pick the same team for the next 5 games and hope to dear God it clicks. But the evidence is there's too many players who are out of form, whether or not because they just don't give a shit, or whether or not they're just not they're not as good as we hoped they were. Is it unanswerable?
But then the conflict we've got is that we, like you say, we've been in top 6 all season. There's your benchmark. I'm not going to change now just because we've had a bad run. I'm not going to now look at it and say, well,
No.
it doesn't. Feeling ending the season 8th would be good because
No.
we didn't think we were going to get this in the beginning of the season. We've been good all season. That doesn't mean that what happens from this point onwards isn't a failure. If we drop out, it's still a failure. We've been in top 6. What's happening now is a failure. So I'm not going to adjust my intentions for the club and just almost vindicate it and say, okay, you're playing poorly now, so it's fine if you drop out. It's not fine. I've expected promotion all season long because of what they've given us. And the fucking annoying thing is, we've got to live with this bloody annoyance and this hurt beyond this season when all these players are going to bugger off and we'll end up with 2 left. None of these, it doesn't matter to any of these anymore. But this is us. This is our team once again, just throwing away definitely the biggest chance we've had of success. And it winds me up.
Do you know what frustrates me the most, Neil? Is we discussed on the pod months ago the fact that we were in a slight decline. And this blip, this out of form, isn't sort of 3-4 games in the making, or even the 7 losses in the last 9 in the making. This decline's been basically since we went top. The week after we drew 2-2 with Doncaster after being 1-0 up and 2-1 up. And in that game, you could see that there was a sort of different sort of arrogance. And then it sort of went on, and we basically got a last-minute winner against Port Vale, which made the Christmas period look a lot better than it deserved to be. But we were shit against Port Vale and against Oldham at home, and shit against Chesterfield away. And that was 10 games ago now. But because we were still in the top 6, I include Mowbray in this. I think a lot of people were deluding themselves into, it's not that bad. We're still in the top 6. 1 win will turn us round. It's not that bad. We're still in the top 6. We're still 5 points into the top 6. It's not that bad. We've dropped behind Millwall, but we're still 5 points clear of the 7th place team. And it's just like, no, this bad form should have been nipped in the bud months ago, before it became sort of part of this season, before it became so ingrained. It's defined basically the second half of the season. The first 18 games, we won 11 games. The next 18 games, even if we beat Blackpool, we'd have won 4. And that's just not good enough.
It's so easy to make the playoffs this season after what we did in the first half. We didn't even need to be brilliant. That's what gets to me. We could have quite easily just been okay.
On the subject of nipping in buds, I would suggest at 53 minutes that we invite CJ back into the conversation.
We talk about. I mean, we talk about Mowbray and end of season slumps, or Christmas slumps onwards. We talk about what he did at Middlesbrough and so on. Is it fair to say that Celtic? It's the SPL at the time, wasn't it? So, Celtic.
The Celtic fans I know can't stand him.
What's that? Sorry.
The Celtic fans I know can't stand him. They talk about him as being the worst manager they've had in recent history. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. He was at Hibs as well, wasn't he? And he seemed to do a reasonable job there. But the only time, really, he's gone from start to finish was when, you look at the team he had in 07-08 with the Albion. He had, you just go 1 to 11. Kiley, 1. Carl Hopkins, 2. Paul Robinson, 3. We'll gloss over Leon Barnett at 4. Neil Clement, 5. Robert Curran, 7. Jonathan Greening, 8. Roman Bednar, 9. Craig Beattie, 10. Zoltan Gira, 11. And then, even down to they did play quite a lot, to be fair. 27, James Morrison. 29, Chris Brunt. That Luke Moore on loan from the Villa. You look at it and you think, well, that's the only time he's gone through a whole season where you've got to say, that he completed what he set out to do.
So in the interest of balance, he is phenomenally well revered at Hibernian as well. Yeah. Really well revered.
I'm not for 1 minute saying that he needs to go. He in far as I'm concerned, he should be given till the end of next season. That's my opinion. But you look at that team, and you think that's the only time. And every single one of those players, you've got to say, they weren't really a child like what we've got now. They weren't well over the hill. They were probably around their prime. And maybe Dean Kiley apart, Leon Barnett apart, but Dean Kiley was brilliant that season.
And Dean Kiley would have gone on to play a good number of years after that as well.
He did, yeah. And this is what you've got to look at. That team around him, and this is exactly what I said last year when we took Mowbray on, and we did, nobody expected for us to get a child that was going to, from up north, that was going to end up coming down here without his family, moving to a strange new land, and scoring 19 in, 2/3 of a season, 3/4 of a season. Nobody expected us to be able to do that. Nobody expected us to sell, an 18, 19-year-old kid for whatever it was, 3 million up front, anything between 3 and 9.5 million. If he finally goes on to play for the Moon against Venus or something. But it's I mean, nobody thought that was going to happen. But the point is, it has, and you've got to say, as the start of the way how this season started, it is a bit of a failure. But you would have taken this last season, wouldn't you?
It's not relevant.
Yeah,
that's my only point. It's just that because, like you say, it's changed so much. The only relevance is the context that we've created for ourselves this season. Like 5 years ago, I wouldn't have taken being in League One.
Oh, nowhere near. No.
But it's just like, where's your cut-off point? It's kind of, you can only judge it based on what's relevant to you at this point in time. And I know things weren't very good last season, but it completely changed. And he built a team, and he got us into a position where we should only be looking at promotion. And it's that decline beyond that, which is the one that's, I think, can only be the focus. Otherwise, we're always looking back in time and almost deferring success, because we're comparing what we've, like any failure that we've had, against something that was even worse. And let's face it, if we're doing that with Coventry City, we're going to be doing that all our lives. It's just we need to stop. I feel like we need to stop this mindset of looking back at something that was poor and comparing when things go wrong for us and saying, well, at least it isn't as bad as that. Because I just feel like the relevance goes once you address. We did address the poor situation. We built a brand new team. We got ourselves to the top of the league. That's the situation we created for ourselves. And then I'm only comparing against that now. That's maybe I'm blinkered. Maybe I'm too focused on the present. But that's the only way I can look at it.
The other thing, Neil, you remember when we went top?
I do. I was crying for weeks. It was fantastic.
Can you remember the Gillingham game when we absolutely tore them apart?
Again, I was in tears. It was great. Yeah.
And this is the other thing that slightly bugs me. And I know where CJ's coming from, but we didn't bumble our way to top. We were fucking brilliant for 18 games. We were so good. And then not only on top of that, we also had Joe Cole coming in. And
Ben Turner coming back and Biggie coming back.
Yeah.
And we were actually wasteful. We threw away loads of games. Really, we should have been out of sight.
And that's the thing. I think, and I know this sort of at the start of the season, even on this podcast at the start of the season, we weren't overly convinced we were going to have a good season. And then within 18 games, that had been put to bed. We were brilliant. And I think if Mowbray's going to take the credit for that, which he deserves to, because between him and his team, Mark Venus and Jamie Clapham, they brought in those players who got us to top. And they got performances out of John Fleck, which I personally didn't think he would be able to achieve. But there again, if you get the credit for that, he also must take some of the blame for what's happened since. And the only thing within the first couple of weeks of going top was Ben Turner being injured. We still had Ryan Kent, we still had Jim O'Brien. It was Ben Turner getting injured. And even then, I think Aaron Martin came in and we kept quite a few clean sheets. Because that was when Reece Charles Cook was going through his keeping clean sheet stage.
Yeah.
So, no, it wasn't really how it got panned out since we went top. You would, if you'd have said to any Cov fan after that Gillingham game, in the week after that Gillingham game, in 17 games' time, you'd be 20 points behind Burton. We'd have all pissed ourselves and told them to get a jog on. because you just couldn't see that happening. You couldn't see this decline happening at that moment in time, and that's what makes it even more stark and probably more frustrating.
The other thing is as well. I was going to say we mentioned our form, and I mean if you compare it to everyone else in the league, obviously it's not very favourable, but it is actually quite surprising to look at some of the teams around us in the last six games or so. I mean, do you know who's top of the form table at the moment?
Barnsley?
Shrewsbury.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah.
I had no idea of that. Okay.
Yeah. Unbeaten in 6. 4 wins.
Yeah. I mean, 2 wins at home, 2 wins away, 2 draws away. And then Swindon, Barnsley, Wigan, Millwall, Bradford. And I mean, Peterborough are bottom. I mean, quite frankly, I'm not their manager's biggest fan. I don't think anybody is, but
No.
it couldn't happen to a nicer bloke. But they've just been a disaster the last few weeks. Blackpool are 3rd from bottom. Do you know who's 4th from bottom?
Is it us?
No.
Walsall.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, they've sacked their manager.
They haven't won 8, have they?
I mean, Gillingham 2 places above us. Burton 4 places above us. You know, I mean, Gillingham 16th, Burton 14th. That's in the last 6 games. And, I mean, everyone seems to be having a mare at the moment. And, I mean, I know we've dropped off by some way, but that makes it even more frustrating in a way to look at every other team. And I know it was spoken about 15, 20 minutes ago with regards to everyone else is doing their best to kind of make it easier for us. And that is more frustrating than anything, I think. Just looking at that form table and thinking, if only we hadn't have given away, if only John Fleck hadn't have charged across the box the other week and given away that penalty against Rochdale. He had no other result from that. He was never going to get the ball, just take the man out. We would be a point better off. And there's one or two other things as well. If only 5 or 6 defensive players hadn't stood completely still for their first goal on Tuesday, which was just ridiculous. I mean, it was a reasonable through ball, but it's 5 or 6 players just stood there and watched that Kai just collect the ball and just run. And then Charles Cook was just like a lamb to slaughter. You just look at it, you think, he's not going to stop that. It's just these little mistakes, and you just look at it and thinking, how different could it be if it wasn't for these little mistakes? And I know we're talking mainly about scoring goals. Our biggest problem, I believe, is still at the back, and we're actually the amount we're conceding and the stupid goals we're conceding as well.
Oh dear. I feel like we're going to have to...
it is brutal, isn't it?
Yeah, I feel like we're going to have to pull this away then, just because we are running out of time. We're going to do some very, very quick Blackpool preview. The most important thing for you to know is that they are dog pops. They haven't won in their last 6. They've lost 4 of those, as Paul said earlier. Their away form is what's let them down primarily, but their home form isn't exactly scintillating. They've won 2, drawn 2, lost 2. Player-wise... Actually, no, let's give you a league table, shall we? They are in 21st, so they're in the relegation zone, 2 points in the relegation zone. Player-wise, they have a handful of... And it's the same old situation for players that are down at the bottom. They've got some names. So they've got Danny Phillips-Kirk, who's scored 4 in his 11 appearances for the club. I imagine that's a reasonably recent signing, although my knowledge doesn't extend to how and when Danny Phillips-Kirk was signed for Blackpool. But that looks to be a sort of a possible shining light for them. David Ferguson is on loan from someone who I can't remember who it is now. He's a defender on loan. Oh, Sunderland. He's on loan from Sunderland. Mark Cullen up front is reasonably quick. He's got 7 goals for them this season as a top scorer. Mark Yates was a reasonable player at Watford, a better player at Bradford, but has only played 8 times for them this season. Again, that might only be just because he's just joined. Lloyd Jones has played 9 times for him. I feel like he's a young player, reasonably highly rated from Liverpool as a centre-half. I've got a feeling he might have got injured and might not have played for a while. Colin Doyle in goal is their first choice keeper, as far I think, who was on loan with us.
Yeah, played once, I think.
And then again, it's another sort of similar to our own sort of footballer graveyard. David Norris, Emerson Boyce, Martin Patterson. Who else did I see? Yeah, just, players who actually, memorable names that we've seen throughout the years, but all of them are 35, 36 and presumably way past their sell-by date. They also look like they've used, as would be expected for a player, a team that are this shit, just a phenomenal number of players. So yeah, I mean, they are rubbish, but then are we worse is the question.
That question again.
Yeah. I would suggest, as we're not doing predictions anymore, we don't aim to answer it now. Who is trekking their way up to Blackpool on Saturday? CJ, are you going?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Paul, are you braving it?
I'm a bollocks.
Oh, Neil?
No.
Okay.
We're terrible, I know, but what are you going to do?
Well, CJ, I'll see you on Saturday. I'm going to wrap this up because of the time. If you want to get in touch
Can I
with
just
us...
quickly throw this one in there, Joey?
Yeah.
If the results go against us on Saturday, we'll be 12th.
Ah!
There you go. If you need to get in touch with us, it's neelamptyshow@gmail.com or it's @neelamptyshow on Twitter. I'm going to give you all one final week to enter the Art of Football competition. If you head to the Twitter, then you can find out details of how to enter. I'll put that on there now so that you pick it up by the time that this comes out. And then I think all I need to do is say thank you to Neil.
Cheers.
Thank you to Paul.
Cheers, mate.
CJ, how do we find you on Twitter and on the internet?
At CJ Covblaze on Twitter.
Okay. Thank you very much for your input and thank you for listening, guys. Bye.